We are fortunate to have in this panel the participation of 3 countries that, regarding the subject to discuss here, have a lot to contribute. On one side, from the fiscal agency from Spain, we are certain of the collaboration and contributions they will make to this panel because of the results that for many years have obtained in the matter of control services from this fiscal agency. The figures that Mr. Aristoteles from Mexico contributed yesterday certainly gave us something on our minds, and the tax agency from Ecuador is one of the agencies that has had the greatest growth in this decade in Latin America. So our topic today is related to the opportunities technology brings in the obtain of benefits and services for taxpayers. So I would like to start asking a common question, and this is, which is the star service that tax agencies from your countries provide to taxpayers today? I think that the star service from our administration is the draft and fiscal data of the income campaign of physical persons. We have 19.3 million tax returns, and 45% of cases we return the pre-filled return, but we calculated fiscal data to 22 million of taxpayers, meaning we can say that probably all of taxpayers incorporate fiscal data that we'll calculate. In some cases, 45%, they might complement thoroughly the return, in some cases not. And this has led us in the flow of tax returns that are fully automated, and those that do not use internet do send a PDF file with a 2-dimension barcode. We manually fill the return to 2 million of taxpayers, but they are introduced via intranet to our database, so the 100% of our returns are incorporated in internet. We just started a pilot project that will allow the collaboration of taxpayers in the validation process. We had this process that is a validation process for taxpayers requesting a return, and they can access our database, see if their return is validated, and they receive the notice, and if they agree to this conformity, and if they are not, they can add or provide more information. So the first phase, when entering this documentation, has been completed. We have an electronic notice, but still we have the challenge to automate and let taxpayers participate in the intermediate part of the process. From Ecuador, of the most relevant products, the fiscal administration has worked intensely in these past years in providing services to taxpayers through the portal, and we have public consultations, specialized consultations for validation of electronic receipts, which is another product that we have implemented. In addition to this, as for tax returns, starting January 2013, we receive the full of tax returns through internet. We have agreements with different banking institutions providing different options for payment, whether credit card, electronic transferences. So taxpayers don't need to go physically to the bank. Also, we have the scheme of electronic receipts, and in this year, we will start massification with the status of mandatory starting in August and ending in the first semester of next year. This is focused to large taxpayers. Another relevant product from this year was the application for mobile devices, and through a single development, it can be installed in different devices from different brands, different type, Blackberries, Androids, for its download. Yesterday, the director of the Tax Administration Agency described one of the services, and I want to relate to two services. One is this new concept that we are testing and that began in November last year of the registration supported by the federal taxpayer registration supported in the information from the National Population Registration, where the service had a previous review to its incorporation in Internet. We removed requirements and proceedings that were or are an additional burden for the taxpayer and that actually were not really necessary. And yesterday was mentioned the need to take a Xerox copy of the birth certificate was removed. Also, to stand in line in our offices or arriving with a previous appointment also was removed. Now, this proceeding can be done at home through our computer, and we can print our two-dimension code with the full characteristics and features of our tax ID in just a matter of minutes. And the test that we are performing with higher frequency and more intensity is that most of the current registration of private persons are done through these means. When it started back in November, we were at levels of 50%, and now we are way above this percentage in the strictly digital area through internet. The other services that have already been tested and undergo a continuous improvement are the tax returns that we already established the tradition to submit them through internet and for all our taxpayers. And this process has been improving as time goes by, incorporating other services that payment, whether these are companies or private persons. And I think that one of the services that we are proud of would be management and generation of electronic invoices that can be performed through a cellular phone, a tablet, or a PC. Many of these services that we provide, particularly this one of electronic invoices, are generated by the taxpayers with PAC from SAT or Megapack, as we call it, which might be smaller compared to other PACs, but this service has increased in a significant way in the past few months. These would be the first three services. Thank you. All of them an interesting subject in itself. One of the first contributions that catches our attention in this new participation of taxpayers as participants, somehow assistants of this service control and extended arm, I would say. And I would like to share an experience from FIP Argentina. If you go to Buenos Aires, you will find a QR spots in establishments that with a mobile device you can scan it and denounce because of an non-compliance. So people are able to report this to the tax administration agency, and it works. I think it works better when the taxpayer is mistreated in these establishments, and with this feature they can denounce this establishment. I think two responses are interesting with the use of mobile devices. And I wonder, and I want to continue with you, regarding the strategy of channels of attention, these services from the tax administration agency. We have the presential platform, and some administrations think this must be restructured or rethink also the creation of new channels. So what are we developing? Can we start with Mexico first? Well, for a while ago, let's say the past 16, 17 months, the instructions we received, the business and technology areas from the tax administration agency, were to focus our services to mobile devices. Certainly, this is an additional means, but we want it to be fundamental in the midterm. The great difference between the population that do have internet, as Javier Vega mentioned yesterday, and the population that has mobile devices that, whether they are smartphones or not, that reaches really high levels of penetration in citizens. What it does, that an additional means to the service that we provide in our local administrations will be directed to internet, and in particularly to light devices as mobile phones and tablets. So this guideline in a reengineering process, as we are involved, what we do, all the core of our business is being rewritten and redesigning with two main features. One, to have a process and projects review to simplify them as well as services, and another one oriented to an internet or after internet platform directed to the cloud and mobile devices. So that's where we are going. We are placing these new places of the core of our business that start with the registration, tax returns, payments, and even we are incorporating something beneficial for the taxpayer, which is the resource of revoking online These are additional means through mobile devices. Alfonso, good day. First, the feature of multi-channels in Spain is an obligation. The law of organic administration obliges us to provide these multi-channel services. Even we should have alternative means except for collectives that have different features. But we must resolve this through the electronic means, obliging the supply of services, but also placing assistant hubs so people with no access to electronic means can have another options. We have these hubs of physical assistance, telephone support, and some telematic channels. Talking about these, we must acknowledge that in our world, every month there is a new operation system for mobile devices, new versions of every tool. So our strategy in this electronic channel strategy is to be based on standards and avoid adherence to any platform. So we have developed mobile applications. We have published one in every market. One is for the identification system, and the other is a general application. We want to have a presence, but not to develop in these specific platforms, because this is such a huge task that is why we are based in HTML5, which is the common standard for browsers, and is convenient because it is present in all current devices. This is what new systems do. They meet with standards. We do our part, which is to make sure that in different dimensions our apps will work. Also, this can be seen from the perspective of the size of the company or the size of the taxpayer. For very small taxpayers that have an occasional use, access to our services in our portal, the CDS portal, is the best way. They enter in a guided form, they fill out templates and do a consultation. But as we scale up, we have specific needs. If we are in the SMEs surroundings, they require to send information with some type of download that can be done with their office tools, and they don't want to have a greater integration. That's why we provide it with SUV templates, so they will work with lots without an additional effort. But then, obviously, we have the next step of companies of larger size, or if they have a software that is developed for a specific sector. And our bet there have services that allow for a machine-to-machine integration with an efficient activity, so these taxpayers and company are not able to see that behind this is the tax agency. We are working hard in the different services, so they will have all these different currents that will adapt to all the wide fan of taxpayers before us. Thank you. The clear message is that the better the diagnosis, the better the activities. a complementing comment, Rufini. Yes, we are overcoming the presential or physical channel. As Alfonso said, we are obligated, and what you call here local offices is an important element that we continue to have, and internet provides advantages to the administration along with the physical presence. This is included in the information channel, and we can customize the attention to our taxpayers. In Spain, on one side, we are establishing an obligation. Not at first. At first will be a possibility for all taxpayers that if they want to physically attend to an office, they have to make a previous appointment. And with this, we will know which is the taxpayer coming to our offices, when, and for what business. This will help us optimize the service, and also we can specialize offices. We have a system where offices needed to have a specialist in all fiscal areas. But now if we know what's the business of a taxpayer coming, we can address him properly with the specialist to provide him with advantageous services, because this is not an unknown taxpayer. We know his business, and when he sits in our desk, our colleague will know his profile, his risks, if he has an incident or not, even if we call him, send him a notice. So the government official knows exactly the business of this person, and this provides us with great advantages. Also, we have an electronic file that is allowing us to break the fixation of a taxpayer with his local offices, because if this local office is burdened with work, we can send this taxpayer along with his file to another nearby office, and we can incorporate these electronic advantages. Well, yes, thank you. Even in the personalized attention, we must incorporate technology and improve the platform of services. Carlos, you recently mentioned in the previous answer a figure that should cut the attention of many. 100% of our tax returns are through internet, and this is said rather easily, but that last 1% represented a huge challenge for a fiscal administration, certainly when in some instances there might be some legal restrictions to oblige or not. So when you say the word services, one thing is that if there are services, there should be voluntary services. So how was the strategy that led you to the 100%? Because you are not the only country that has reached 100%. Well, first, it was the quality of service, the fact to make tax returns through internet simplified to taxpayers the time they use for their tax returns. In the banking institutions, usually there are huge lines to make deposits or 2% and submit a return. And this is another one difficulty that was avoided if they did this electronically. Until the year 2012, they reached 95% under the scheme where corporations were the only one with the obligation to do so. However, more taxpayers opted for this because they save time. Now, in 2013, it was obligatory for all, and this provided in a more immediate way the information for the fiscal administration. Also, to make things easier for citizens was access to these technological means. And for this, we placed in the most important agencies free wireless internet. This is going massive through the government. There is a disposition to have these services in different governmental entities. Raul, perhaps something that I would like to mention to complement regarding the previous question about channels. In Ecuador, we had for the physical agencies, we already had this, but also we had mobile brigades that allowed to establish specific operatives of registration. We visited localities where we launched the simplified regime. We established mobile hubs where taxpayers didn't need to go to other places. In their own locations, they could register to this regime. Also, we are establishing at the government level the unique hubs where several government institutions will be able to have an office for this. So if someone needs to have a proceeding, can go to this single office and perform several proceedings at the same time. And at a technological level regarding interoperability, we have established an entrepreneurial bus of services for exchange of information between different public agencies. This facilitates proceedings to have a first-time registration of a company. You needed to go to the Superintendency of Companies and then to SRI or vice versa. Now we have automated this and we do not need people going to these different agencies. Well, I wanted to invite the audience because we have the intention to open a Q&A session. So please, I ask you, consider and think your questions, and you can call the floor attendant for this. So it is true, the collaboration of technology service providers require of developments that many times are complex. They should have maintenance, and there are also different strategies. Yesterday we heard from our colleague from the IRS from the US that they cooperate with third parties to provide services to taxpayers. On the other side, there are some administrations that practically do everything in-house, and later they can develop these technology services. So I wanted to ask you, which has been your strategy, and within this strategy, which are the positive factors and where is room to improve in the way that you have developed, you have grown these technological services in your administrations? Well, first, we should provide services that we hope the taxpayer will use without going first to the private sector. But also we should enable that there is a market with other operators adding value to have market share and help us in this mission. So how do we reach this equilibrium? Well, some brushes or drafts were made for the establishment of these services for templates or have services for companies. So far, there are developers providing these services like packages for companies, for the fiscal administration and fiscal proceedings, and some commercial proceedings. So these packages are integrated with our services and provide an added value. And with this, we consider as fundamental to establish these boundaries that provide definition to the market. However, the taxpayers that use this occasionally must invest in this. This is a limitation. And for the companies that develop these softwares, we have fora where we participate. We anticipate the different changes to come, and they are in a good part of the market. Yesterday also was mentioned the representation, social collaboration, and this is a figure that allows third parties to conduct these functions on behalf of the name of the taxpayer, and this professional collective lies upon other developers and integrators to provide more professional tools. Well, for our case in Mexico, the reflection that I would like to make is that the incorporation of information technology and communications to our business poses an important change of paradigms. And this change in the particular case of the intervention of service providers or from the private sector supporting the actions we conduct, what it does is force us to reflect on how the authority will control or generate standards, regulations, and proceedings, and how they will incorporate third parties to collaborate with us. In Mexico, we have had now for a while some interesting collaboration aspects. And I want to set perhaps three examples. The first one, and we developed these from many time ago for foreign trade, the tax administration agency, just as many other countries, has custom brokers, and these and also legal representatives from important agencies. What they do is, previous to any dispatch, is they generate electronic bill of ladings, they validate these, organize these, and they transmit these to the authority through a single stop portal. And what we do is we incorporate from the relationship of a taxpayer with different agencies, depending on the goods to import, if it is food with the sanitary area, if it is chemical products with the health area. So we already have a scheme where we have established a relationship between what is provided by the state and third parties that help us do so. But also, and another example is what PACs do. PACs help us, and not only they do so, I think that under the scheme of setting order and use technology, many PACs have gone a step beyond. Because today morning we were looking at a PAC that moved here to Cancun by a choice of destination, and through a card similar to a debit card. You prepay your card, let's say 350 pesos. So the small taxpayer will issue invoices with this card. But with these 350 pesos, he can have access to other type of services like start their accounting books or other type of things that add to this value. So I do believe that the change and the use of technology creates so much work that there is room for the authority to do properly, control it, standardize supporting these initiatives, and for entrepreneurs that with creativity, imagination will incorporate added value. There are many, many other examples. I don't want to bore you with this. Well, as for the construction of technological solutions in Ecuador, we have had an evolution consisting on different steps. At first, when we constructed the service of internal revenues, we started from scratch and we began with the outsourcing of developers to helping us with these tasks. In recent years, the policy of this direction has been the construction at a large scale towards the interior of this agency because of knowledge, because companies that supported and help us through developments, they ended the task and the staff left the institution, leaving us with no knowledge. So now we have a scheme of internal development, potentializing development methodologies, agile developments, standards. And in this last step, we are on a change process, which is radical. We are going to restructure all our fiscal core through a project that we work along with the IBD. And in the next 4 years, we will work with the support of vendors in the implementation of this new project. So the clear message is that this one size fits all is not good. We must respect diversity and find the solutions proper to each case. I don't know if someone from the audience would like to ask a question. I will ask you another question, and I want to remind you what we heard yesterday regarding the business of music. 20 billion CD and then 100 because today's music, you do not buy it online. You just download it with a fixed monthly fee. There is a radical change, and in 10 years there will be more. So the question is, which services you think will the fiscal administration will provide to taxpayers in the year 2025? How do we see the fiscal administration? Because certainly some things will change and these changes will be fast. So which is the expectation? Rufino, you mentioned yesterday interoperability. How do you see this to the year 2025? Okay, so let's our imagination be creative. It's difficult because certainly there are interoperability elements every time simpler. And another one is the de-intermediation, because there will be no intermediaries in internet. And we all are, and I think we all agree that we should be one of the intermediaries to disappear, because if all taxpayers will faithfully meet their obligations, we wouldn't have a need to exist. But there is a chain of intermediaries, accountants, companies, and we will shorten this chain from the entrepreneur until he meets his obligations. I think we will provide every time more information, and perhaps a small or medium-sized company will not longer require of an accountant. And I don't know the size of these companies in 5 years, because the accountant will go to the tax area and tax area will go to the local office, and this model will no longer exist in 10, 15 years. So today we see the source of information. I agree what Fernando said yesterday. We were considering the accounts because it was our source of information. But since the information will be provided by the source, I think that the taxpayer will provide us the base information. We will have the books, the tax returns, and I don't know if we will disappear, because if everyone is good and if everyone pays taxes, so this intermediary chain certainly will shorten. Another thing that it is not clear to me how we work and we are fearful is our participation in a more collaborative way in Spain, and I think in other countries. When a taxpayer has a question, comes to us, but sometimes to an advisory fora or entrepreneur fora, and we are afraid to participate as a tax administration. No, we are fearful to answer incorrectly, and there is also another obstacle. If we have an internet channel, the taxpayers will want to know, and they will want to know in real time, the proper taxation. Well, on my part, letting my imagination be creative, I was watching the Back to the Future movie. They were talking about the year 2015 as the future with flying vehicles and very interesting things. An element in the short, medium, and long term in the Ecuador is the dematerialization of money. Money will be electronic money. I believe this will have a greater outreach and will be associated to fiscal administration regarding fiscal receipts. Everything will be automatic if I pay with my cell phone. At the same time, immediately I will have the electronic receipt. So the government will be a far more integrated element. We will not be seen as an individual element. A single hub for services for citizens mainly. These are the elements, and free services, access to internet, access to penetration. And for the case of Mexico, I just would like to say or question me. And going back to 1990, where one of the proposals back then by technocrats was that we should provide taxpayers information regarding payments they made. Attorneys quickly they said no, we shouldn't expose that information because it will be like a peace certificate, as happened in some fiscal administrations in Latin America. And today, by law, we have one of many mandates, which is the electronic mailbox. And this is a place where the taxpayer will have access to not only the information the authority has of them, but his files, notifications, proceedings, and so on, his accounts. So this brutal change of paradigm in Mexico, we started integrating, as mentioned yesterday, from the presidency of our country. We are integrating a coordination in terms of digital government. And this effort to reach as fast as possible to what we describe as the first quarter of this century is the fact that gov.mx will be a reality. The current 7,000 proceedings from the federal government and many others from local and state governments, proceedings and services that they are performed in a wide variety of ways. They will be homogeneous, they will be integrated, standardized. So again, just to agree to your comment, as I said yesterday on my closing statement in our work session in 1995, when I heard Gates to talk about virtual money, or that on your TV you were able to see your email, which is what we do between commercials in the soap operas, and I can do that from my TV. So I think these efforts are working towards this, providing through management of information and knowledge and an intensive use of technology, we are providing to society the promises that were given from many years ago, which is the relationship between businesses and the government, individuals and the government in an agile, fast way in real-time information. Questions? Well, listening to you, I noticed that the prerogative for these questions is the subject of technological development. So I am curious, which do you think is the role within your position of our regulation government to motivate or to put incentives in the technological development of each country? Because at the end of the day, if the company, if the government, if the country doesn't have the capability of certain technologies to be developed, it will be difficult to go massive to provide these services. So which do you think is the role of this administration to influence policies to promote a particular type of development that will help you reach these objectives to provide these technological tools in these administrations? Yesterday, I tried to express which elements are fundamental for this that you just mentioned. I think that three important factors must incide. The first one, and these are not in priority, a random order. Number one, our current technology that we could summarize in the cloud, big data, or analysis of a structure or non-structured information, mobility or light devices, the use of artificial intelligence like robotics. And on the other side, we have legislation that, for the case of Mexico, we have the fortune that this fiscal reform foresee or consider a series of things that are similar to what Spain did in 2007 with its Act 11. I analyze it and I see many coincidences in many of the definitions from our fiscal reform. And finally, people. People must change paradigms and a frame of mind. Some aspects that I mentioned yesterday, but I would like to stress something is the change of attitude and the use of technology and new rules from the establishment owners of Tabasco. The success cases that were presented here, as I said yesterday, and I will elaborate on this because of Maximo's intervention in the previous panel. So it is based in the use of this technology, and secondly, in the use of this technology to set order in a scheme where the greatest number of taxpayers, what they want is through any means to operate, to be on the side of the law, change from the informal to the formal economy, increase its participation in the real environment. And this can be done only if you incorporate in the public administration the use of technology, apply the law, and the necessary communication so that both technology and law will work in favor of society as a whole. My response is related to how all citizens do not have the same access to technology. We should be demanding to those that we can demand, like middle-sized companies, small-sized companies, and on the other side, as Juan mentioned, I believe that also we are a bit paternalist. The adoption of technologies, some taxpayers have a difficult time reaching to the access of these technologies. And as our Chile colleague said, first, it is the kids that are technology-wise, but also grandparents are. But what we cannot do is demand to grandparents to buy a PC, but they can have a cell phone because they can see pictures of our mothers, grandmas, or grandchildren. So technology is available, and I believe the degree of penetration is really high. We are fearful to force to make it mandatory, but the citizens go faster than us in many aspects of technology. In the case of Ecuador, I can tell you in two environments what it's at the level of government. The president has promoted technology. He has toured several countries to sign agreements for information exchange. Also, we are promoting scholarships for Ecuadorians. And at the level of the fiscal administration, I wanted to share that we tried as the Internal Revenue Service exchange technological progress with other government agencies, convey our experience. So this will be implemented in spite of being a relatively young institution. We have been amongst the most advanced institutions from the public sector in Ecuador. Many times we provide advice at the level of citizens, of taxpayers. We provide internet access in the main agencies. We provide more accessibility to people, to persons, so they will have this approach to technology. We have training available, virtual and physical training of taxpayers regarding how they can manage the systems and the applications that we develop. Okay, our time is up, and I wanted to say that all the comments we have received, they clearly state the importance of technology in the providing of services that certainly relate to control tools for the fiscal administration. And finally, the vision of fiscal administration of these services for the year 2025 is positive, simpler, faster. Some taxpayers should really be happy with this possibility that there will be no longer fiscal administration. Thank you so much. Thank you.